The little girl asked. "Can I buy you?" The giant cowboy's reply left her crying. It was a bright sunny afternoon in a small, quiet town tucked away in the Midwest. The kind of town where everyone knew each other, and the streets were lined with old wooden houses, each with a small garden bursting with flowers. Children played freely in the yards, and the air carried the soft hum of summer, birds singing, a distant lawnmower, and the occasional laughter of neighbors. On this particular day, the town seemed to have an extra sparkle. The local rodeo grounds, just a short walk from the center of town, were filled with people preparing for the weekend event. Horses neighing, wagons being pulled, and the smell of hay mixed with the scent of fresh grass. Among all this movement, a little girl of about 6 years old wandered near the edge of the rodeo grounds. She was small for her age, with soft brown hair tied into 2 uneven braids that swung as she walked. Her eyes were wide and curious, constantly scanning the scene around her. She carried a small, worn piggy bank in her hands, the kind with a tiny coin slot on top and faded paint from years of being squeezed and shaken. She had been saving coins for months, sometimes dropping dimes and nickels into it without really knowing what she would do with them, just enjoying the excitement of collecting. Today something had caught her attention, something much bigger and stranger than coins or piggy banks, a giant cowboy. The cowboy was unlike anyone she had ever seen. He towered above everyone else, easily over 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders and a calm, steady presence. His hat was old and worn, shading a tanned face lined with years of outdoor work, and his boots were scuffed from countless rides. A large, muscular horse stood beside him, quietly munching on hay, as the cowboy carefully checked the saddle and reins. There was something almost magical about him to the little girl, like he had stepped out of one of the storybooks her mother read to her at night. For a while, she just watched him from a distance. She tiptoed around the crowd, her small fingers clutching her piggy bank tightly, and studied how he moved, how gently he handled the horse, and how the people around him seemed to respect him without even needing to say a word. To her, he seemed bigger than life, almost like a giant from one of the fairy tales she loved so much. Finally, her curiosity got the better of her. She hesitated for a moment, wondering if she should approach him. Her parents had always told her to be polite to strangers, but there was something about this cowboy that didn't seem intimidating at all. He had a kind way of moving, and even from a distance she felt that he might understand her. Summoning all her courage, she took a few small steps forward. Her tiny feet made soft sounds against the dirt, barely audible over the bustling rodeo. When she reached him, she looked up, craning her neck as high as she could. The cowboy noticed her immediately, and a gentle smile appeared on his face. He had seen many people at the rodeo, but there was something different about this little girl. She had a serious expression, her small hands tightly wrapped around the piggy bank, as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "Hello there, little one," he said in a deep but kind voice, bending slightly to make eye contact with her. His shadow loomed over her, but it didn't scare her. Instead, it made her feel like she had discovered a secret friend in the middle of the busy rodeo grounds. The girl hesitated, then held up her piggy bank with both hands. Can I buy you?" she asked in a small, hopeful voice. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, the cowboy froze. He blinked, caught off guard by the innocence and honesty of her question. He realized immediately that she didn't understand the idea of money in the same way adults did. To her, perhaps, the world worked like the small toy shop she loved so much. If you had enough coins, you could take something home. But this wasn't a toy. A soft chuckle escaped his lips, and he knelt down slowly so that he was closer to her level.
"Oh, little one," he said gently. "People aren't for sale. You can't buy someone, no matter how many coins you have."
The girl tilted her head, confused. She didn't understand. To her, people were kind and friendly, and sometimes they gave treats or helped with chores. Maybe, she thought, someone as big and nice as this cowboy could be bought. She had saved her coins for something very special, and in her small mind she thought this could be it. The cowboy realized he needed to explain carefully, in words she could understand. "You see," he continued, "just like your piggy bank can't hold everything in the world, Coins can't buy some things. Friendship, love, and kindness. They're more important than money, and they can't be bought. They are gifts you give to each other by caring, by listening, and by being kind. The girl's eyebrows furrowed as she tried to understand. She held her piggy bank closer, almost as if it were a shield, and looked down at the dirt. She didn't cry yet, but there was a tiny spark of confusion and disappointment in her eyes. This wasn't what she expected. She had thought that with enough coins she could have something. Someone. Special. Now, she was learning that the world didn't work that way. The cowboy reached out and gently took her small hand in his large one, careful not to startle her. "It's okay," he said softly. "It's okay to want something so badly. But the best things in life, the things that really matter, can't be bought. You can earn them by being kind, by helping others, and by showing love." The girl looked up at him again, her eyes wide and shiny. She didn't fully understand, but she felt the warmth in his words. There was a sense of safety in the way he spoke, and even though she was confused, she could feel that he cared. For the first time she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she could give coins to someone as a gift, not to buy them, but to show she cared. Around them, the busy sounds of the rodeo seemed to fade a little. People walking by slowed down to watch the tiny, honest interaction between a little girl and a giant cowboy. Some smiled quietly, thinking about the lessons of childhood and the innocence of youth. Others whispered to each other, amazed at the patience and kindness the cowboy showed. Finally, the girl hugged her piggy bank to her chest and looked at him one more time. "So, you can't be bought?" she asked, her voice small but sincere. "No, little one," he replied gently. "But I can be your friend if you want. Friends share stories, laughter, and sometimes even coins for ice cream. But they can't be bought." She nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. A tiny smile appeared on her face, shy but genuine. She had learned something new today, something that made her feel grown up and wise, even if she didn't completely understand it yet. As she turned to walk back toward the edge of the rodeo grounds, the cowboy stood up and tipped his hat to her. "See you around, little one," he said warmly. The little girl walked slowly away from the cowboy, still holding her piggy bank tightly. Her small feet shuffled across the dusty ground as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. Her mind was full of questions. She had never been told that people couldn't be bought before. In her world, if she wanted something badly enough and had enough coins, she believed she could get it. But now she had met someone so big, kind, and important who told her otherwise. As she walked, she passed other children playing near the rodeo grounds. They were chasing each other and laughing, some holding kites or balls. The little girl wanted to join them, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought about the giant cowboy, his soft voice, and the way he had bent down to speak with her. She tried to remember every word he had said, especially the part about friendship, kindness, and the things money could not buy. Her mother, who had been sitting on a bench nearby, noticed her daughter's slow steps and the thoughtful look on her face. She waved to her, and the little girl ran over. "Are you okay, sweetie?" her mother asked, brushing some dirt off the girl's dress. I don't know," the little girl admitted, holding up her piggy bank as if it were a shield. I thought maybe I could buy someone, but the cowboy said I can't." Her mother smiled gently and sat down beside her. "Oh, honey," she said softly, "people aren't things you can buy. You can give gifts, you can share treats, and you can be kind. But people are not for sale. They have feelings and thoughts, and they make their own choices. That's why we treat everyone with respect." The little girl listened carefully, trying to understand. Her small fingers tightened around the piggy bank, as if holding on to it could help her make sense of the lesson. "But I really wanted him," she whispered. "He was so big and strong and nice. I thought if I gave him my coins, he would, I don't know, be mine." Her mother laughed softly, a warm sound that made the little girl feel safer. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, "that's a very sweet thought, but you don't need to buy anyone to have a friend. Friends are people who like to spend time with you, who laugh with you, and who care about you. You can make friends by being kind and helpful, not by giving money." The little girl nodded slowly, trying to remember all of this. She didn't fully understand yet, but she could feel that it was important. She decided she would remember the cowboy's words. Even though she had felt a little disappointed, there was something comforting in the way he had spoken. After a few moments, she glanced back at the rodeo grounds. The giant cowboy was still there, checking on his horse. His large hands moved skillfully, adjusting the reins and patting the horse gently. The girl felt a pang of longing, wishing she could go back and ask more questions. But she also remembered her mother's words about respect. She knew she could watch from a distance without interrupting, and maybe one day, if she learned more about kindness and friendship, she could meet him again in a better way. The day went on, and the rodeo grounds became busier. People began arriving from neighboring towns, bringing picnic baskets, folding chairs, and blankets. The little girl's curiosity didn't fade. She watched other cowboys and riders, noticing how they helped their horses, how they spoke to each other politely, and how the children in the crowd laughed and cheered at every little performance. The world seemed larger and more exciting than she had imagined. At one point, she saw the giant cowboy helping a younger boy who had tripped over a rope. The boy had scraped his knee, and his eyes were wide with fear and pain. The cowboy knelt down, just like he had done with the little girl, and gently checked the boy's knee. He whispered something softly, and soon the boy was smiling again. The little girl's eyes widened. She realized that kindness didn't come from coins or money. It came from caring for others and being patient. She thought about her piggy bank again. All those coins she had saved for months suddenly seemed less important. Maybe they could buy small toys or candies, but they couldn't buy the warm feeling she had seen on the cowboy's face. That was something far more valuable, something that made people feel safe and happy. As the afternoon sun climbed higher in the sky, the little girl decided to explore more of the rodeo grounds. She wandered near a small tent where children could try pony rides. She watched the excitement in their eyes, the nervous laughter as they climbed onto the ponies' backs. She felt a mix of happiness and longing, wishing she could ride a giant horse like the cowboys someday. But she knew she had to be patient and learn first. Near the tent, she noticed a group of children gathered around a man showing tricks with a lasso. The rope spun in big circles, landing perfectly in front of the children's eyes. Some of them tried to copy him, and some fell down laughing. The little girl giggled quietly, enjoying the scene. She realized that while the giant cowboy had been her first fascination, there were so many other people in the world with skills and stories to share. She wandered toward a quiet corner of the rodeo grounds, where an old wooden fence separated the crowd from a field of wild flowers. She sat down on the grass, holding her piggy bank and thinking. The sun felt warm on her face, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers. She thought about what the cowboy had said, about friendship, kindness, and things money could not buy. She realized that while she might not fully understand everything yet, she wanted to try. She wanted to be someone who cared about others, someone who could make friends without needing coins. As she sat there, she noticed a small boy about her age watching her from the other side of the fence. He had a shy smile and was holding a tiny wooden toy horse. She waved at him, and he waved back. Slowly, she realized that maybe friendship could start with small gestures like a wave, a smile, or a shared laugh. It didn't need coins at all. After a while, the little girl got up and began to walk back toward the main area of the rodeo grounds. She saw her mother again, who had been watching her from a distance. Her mother smiled, and the little girl smiled back. Inside, she felt a small, warm feeling, a sense of understanding that she hadn't had before. She didn't have all the answers yet, but she was beginning to learn an important lesson, that kindness, care, and honesty were far more important than money. The sun started to dip lower in the sky, turning everything golden. The sounds of the rodeo became softer as people began to pack up or move toward the evening activities. The little girl looked around one last time at the giant cowboy, who was now walking his horse toward the stables. He looked calm and strong, like someone who had faced many challenges but still cared about every little detail. The girl felt a mix of admiration and gratitude. Even though she couldn't buy him, she had learned something far more important. As the day ended, the little girl returned home with her mother. She carried her piggy bank, not with the same hope of buying something, but with a new sense of purpose. She wanted to learn how to be kind, how to make friends, and how to understand people's hearts. That evening, she told her mother every detail of what had happened. She described the cowboy's big hands, the way he spoke gently, and how he had helped the small boy with a scraped knee. Her mother listened carefully, nodding and smiling at her daughter's growing understanding. That night before falling asleep, the little girl held her piggy bank close and whispered a small promise to herself. She would try to be kind, helpful, and thoughtful. She would learn how to make friends in the right way. And someday, maybe she would see the giant cowboy again. Not as someone to buy, but as someone to admire and learn from. The day had started as an ordinary summer afternoon in a quiet town, but it had become a moment of discovery. A moment when a little girl learned that the world was bigger than coins, bigger than simple ideas of ownership, and bigger than herself. And though she didn't fully understand everything yet, she had taken her first step toward understanding what truly mattered in life. The next morning, the little girl woke up with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The events of the previous day ran through her mind like a movie. She remembered the giant cowboy, his kind eyes, and the way he had knelt down to speak to her. She remembered the lesson about friendship, kindness, and how some things in life could not be bought with coins. Even though she had thought about it all night, the lesson still felt strange and heavy on her little heart. She didn't fully understand it, but she wanted to. After breakfast, she decided to go back to the rodeo grounds. The thought of seeing the cowboy again made her tiny feet move quickly across the warm, sunlit streets. She carried her piggy bank in one hand, not because she wanted to buy anything anymore, but because it felt like a part of her story. The coins were proof that she had once thought she could buy friendship, and now she knew that was not how the world worked. As she approached the grounds, the familiar sounds of horses, distant laughter, and the creaking of wooden fences filled the air. She spotted the giant cowboy near the stables, tending to his horse as carefully as she remembered. His calm presence made her feel safe, and this time, she was not approaching him with a question about buying. She wanted to understand, to learn, and maybe even to share a little kindness of her own. She took a deep breath and walked slowly toward him. "Good morning, sir," she said politely. Her small voice sounded even smaller under the wide brim of his hat. The cowboy looked up and smiled warmly. "Good morning, little one," he said. "Did you come to see the horses again?" The girl nodded. "Yes, and
I wanted to ask you something. About yesterday."
"About what you said." She held her piggy bank closer to her chest, unsure if it would help her explain. The cowboy tilted his head slightly, showing he was listening carefully. "Of course. What would you like to ask?" She hesitated, then spoke.
Why? Why can't people be bought?
"I mean, I know coins can buy toys and candy, but people? Why not?" The cowboy's expression softened. He took a moment before answering, knowing he needed to be both honest and gentle. "Well, little one," he began, "people are not objects. We can't own each other because we each have our own thoughts, feelings, and choices. Just like your horse has its own mind, people have their own minds too, and that is a very good thing." The girl frowned slightly, trying to understand. "But what if I really, really want someone to be my friend?" The cowboy nodded slowly. "Wanting something is normal. Everyone wants friends, but friendship can't be forced or bought. True friendship is something that grows when you care about someone, when you listen to them, when you share happy times and help each other during sad times. Money can't make someone care about you. It can only buy things, and things can never replace kindness and trust." The little girl hugged her piggy bank tighter. She thought about the coins she had saved for months. She had imagined giving them to the cowboy and somehow having him as a friend. Now she realized that was not possible. But something else was possible. She could learn how to be kind, how to care, and how to be a friend in the right way. "But how do I make a friend, then?" she asked quietly. The cowboy smiled, noticing her genuine curiosity. "You start small. A smile, a kind word, helping someone when they need it. You don't have to do something big all at once. Every kind action you take is like planting a seed, and seeds grow into strong plants over time. Friendships grow in the same way." The girl nodded slowly, picturing tiny seeds growing into tall, strong trees. "So, if I'm kind to someone, then they might like me back?" "Yes," the cowboy said warmly. "But remember, even if they don't, it's still good to be kind. Kindness is never wasted. It makes you stronger and happier too."
The little girl thought about this for a long moment.
She remembered the small boy with the scraped knee from yesterday, and the way the cowboy had helped him. She realized that even though he hadn't given the boy coins, he had given him something far more valuable: care, attention, and understanding. She wanted to learn to do that too. Can you teach me?" she asked, her eyes wide with hope. The cowboy chuckled softly. "I can try," he said. "But remember, being kind isn't just about following instructions. It's about feeling it in your heart and acting on it. It's about noticing when someone needs help and deciding to do something about it, even if it's a small thing." The little girl thought about all the ways she could practice kindness. She could help her friends pick up fallen toys, share snacks, or comfort someone who was sad. Even though she was small, she realized she could make a difference. And just like planting seeds, she could watch her kindness grow over time. Just then, a gentle breeze blew across the rodeo grounds, lifting stray strands of her hair. She looked at the cowboy's horse grazing quietly nearby. The horse looked calm and happy, and the girl realized that caring for another being, human or animal, required patience and love, not coins. "I think I understand a little now," she said, her small voice full of determination. "It's not about coins. It's about caring." The cowboy smiled, proud of her understanding. "Exactly. You're learning very quickly." He paused and added, "And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Sometimes we forget. Sometimes we act too quickly. What matters is that we try again, and we keep practicing kindness." The little girl looked down at her piggy bank again. It had felt so important yesterday, and it still felt precious. But she understood now that it could never buy her the thing she truly wanted: friendship, trust, or love. Those things had to be earned with her heart, not her coins. She felt a small warm feeling in her chest. It was a mix of pride and hope. Maybe one day she would become very good at being kind. Maybe one day she could help someone just like the cowboy had helped the boy with the scraped knee. And maybe, one day, she would meet people who wanted to be her friend because of who she was, not because of what she could give them. The cowboy looked down at her and saw the change in her eyes, the flicker of understanding, the small spark of maturity. He realized that this little girl, in her innocent way, was beginning to understand one of life's most important lessons, and that thought made him smile softly under his wide-brimmed hat. "Do you want to see the horses up close?" he asked. "I can show you how to gently approach them and how to care for them." The girl nodded eagerly, forgetting all about coins for the first time. Together they walked toward the stables. The cowboy showed her how to gently stroke a horse, how to speak softly so it would feel safe, and how to notice the smallest details: the horse's ears, eyes, and even the sound of its breathing. She listened carefully and followed his instructions, feeling proud of herself for learning something new. As she spent the afternoon learning about the horses, she realized something amazing. Kindness, care, and patience were like magic. They could make people and even animals feel happy and safe. And she didn't need to buy anything to make someone smile. She just needed to care. When the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the rodeo grounds, the little girl hugged the cowboy's hand gently. "Thank you," she said softly. "I think I understand now. Coins aren't everything. Kindness and caring, Those are the real treasures. The cowboy smiled and knelt down to her level once more. That's right, little one, and I know you'll practice every day. One day you'll have many friends, and your heart will be full of the best kind of wealth: love, trust, and kindness. She felt a small pride in herself, a sense of growing up just a little. And as she walked home with her mother that evening, she carried not just her piggy bank, but a new understanding, a lesson she would remember for the rest of her life. That day, the little girl learned a truth far greater than anything coins could buy. She learned that people were precious, that kindness mattered more than money, and that friendship and care could not be bought, only shared from the heart. The next day, the little girl woke up with a heavy feeling in her chest. The lesson she had learned from the giant cowboy was still fresh in her mind, but it weighed on her in a way she hadn't expected. She had understood that people could not be bought, but that realization made her feel a strange mix of emotions: sadness, confusion, and even a little disappointment. Her small fingers clutched her piggy bank tightly as she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the sunlight streaming through the window. She thought about the cowboy. His towering figure, kind eyes, and gentle voice had left a mark on her heart. Yesterday, he had taught her something important, but now that she had time to think alone, she realized how much she had really wanted to buy him. Not in a greedy way, but in her innocent, childlike hope that coins could make her dreams come true. She had imagined having a friend like him, someone big, strong, and kind to protect her and share adventures with. And now she understood that it could never happen. Not through coins, not through wishes, not even through longing. The feeling made her want to cry. She didn't run to her mother yet, though. She needed to feel it herself first. She carried her piggy bank to the corner of her room and hugged it, tears forming slowly in her eyes. She whispered to herself, I wanted him. I wanted him to be mine, but I can't buy him. Her mother, noticing her unusual quietness, knocked gently on the door and entered. She sat beside her daughter on the bed and put a comforting arm around her shoulders. Sweetheart, are you feeling okay? She asked softly. The little girl sniffled and wiped her tears on the sleeve of her dress. I know what the cowboy said, she admitted, but I feel sad. I wanted him to be my friend, and I thought maybe coins could help, but they can't. Her mother hugged her tighter and said, I know, honey. Sometimes realizing that we can't have what we want can feel really sad. It's okay to feel that way. But that sadness can also help us grow. It teaches us about patience, understanding, and what really matters. The little girl nodded slowly, but the tears didn't stop immediately. She thought about the happiness she had imagined yesterday, the joy of having the cowboy as a friend, someone she could admire and trust. Now, that happiness seemed far away. Yet, deep down, she remembered the warmth in his voice, the way he had cared for the boy with the scraped knee, and the way he had knelt down to speak to her. That warmth was real. She couldn't buy it, but she could remember it, and that memory made her feel a little better. Later that morning, she decided to go back outside. She wanted to see the world again, to watch people, and to think about what kindness and friendship really meant. She wandered to the small park near her house where other children were playing. She noticed a little boy sitting alone on a swing, looking sad. Without thinking about coins or gifts, she walked over and said gently, Hi, do you want to play with me? The boy's face lit up with surprise. Really? He asked. Yes, she said, smiling. And just like that, they began to play. She realized in that moment that friendship didn't need coins, promises, or ownership. It only needed attention, care, and a willingness to share time. She swung high on the swings, laughed as the boy chased her around the park, and felt the warm glow of happiness that didn't cost anything at all. As she played, she noticed her piggy bank in her backpack. It was still there, filled with coins she had saved for months. She opened it carefully and looked at the shiny coins. A thought came to her mind. Maybe these coins weren't worthless. They could still help people in a small way. She could buy treats for her friends, donate a little to someone in need, or even save some for a toy that she could share with others. The coins were useful, yes, but they could never buy real friendship, and now she understood that. Later in the afternoon, she returned to the rodeo grounds. She had a strong desire to see the giant cowboy again, not because she wanted to buy him, but because she wanted to share what she had learned. She carried her piggy bank, but this time it felt lighter, less like a treasure she needed to use and more like a companion she had grown with. When she reached the stables, the cowboy was there, checking on the horses. He looked up and smiled when he saw her approaching. "Hello again," he said warmly. "Did you come to see the horses?" "Yes," she said softly. "And—"
I wanted to tell you something.
She took a deep breath. I felt sad yesterday. But now I think I understand a little more. Coins can't buy people, but kindness and helping, those things matter more." The cowboy knelt down, as he had done before. "That's very good to hear," he said. "You're learning quickly, and I can see it in the way you talk." "I tried to help a boy today," she said, "and it made me happy. I realized happiness can be shared without coins. You just give a little care, and it grows." The cowboy's eyes sparkled. "Exactly," he said. "And every time you act with kindness, you make the world a little better. That's something no coin could ever buy. You've started planting seeds of friendship and love, and one day, you'll see them grow strong and beautiful." The little girl looked down at her piggy bank and nodded. She understood now that coins were tools for small things, but they couldn't give her the things her heart truly desired: trust, care, friendship, and understanding. She hugged the piggy bank gently, not as a means to buy someone, but as a reminder of the lesson she had learned. Just then, she noticed another child who had dropped his toy horse. Without thinking, she picked it up and handed it back to him with a smile. "Here," she said kindly. "I think this belongs to you." The boy's face lit up with gratitude. "Thank you," he said. The little girl felt a warmth spread through her chest. This was the same feeling she had noticed in the cowboy yesterday. The feeling of making someone happy, of helping someone without expecting anything in return. She realized that this feeling was far better than anything coins could buy. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the little girl sat quietly on a bench near the stables. She watched the cowboy as he led his horse toward the corral, noticing the care and patience he showed with every step. She thought about the lessons he had taught her, and she felt a small but steady sense of growth. She was learning that life wasn't about owning people or things. It was about understanding, caring, and giving from the heart. The day had started with sadness, but it ended with hope. The little girl had felt the weight of disappointment, the pang of wanting something she couldn't have, and the gentle pain of realizing the truth. But she had also felt the joy of kindness, the warmth of helping someone, and the quiet pride of beginning to understand what really mattered in life. As she walked home with her mother that evening, she held her piggy bank lightly in her hand, feeling the coins jingle softly. She didn't need them to make her happy. They were just reminders of her journey, and inside her heart she carried something far more precious: the knowledge that kindness, care, and friendship could not be bought. They had to be given freely, and they would grow stronger the more she practiced them. That night, as she lay in bed, she whispered to herself, "I will be kind. I will help. I will care. And one day I will have friends who love me because I am kind, not because I have coins." She smiled softly and closed her eyes, feeling a deep peace in her heart. She had learned one of life's most important lessons, and though it had made her cry, it had also made her stronger, wiser, and ready for the days ahead. The next morning, the little girl woke up feeling a strange mixture of excitement and calm. For the first time in her young life, she felt that she truly understood something important. Yesterday had been full of emotions, sadness, confusion, and disappointment, but it had also brought her small moments of joy and pride. She hugged her piggy bank gently, not because she wanted to buy anyone, but because it had been part of her journey. It was a reminder of the coins she had saved, the lessons she had learned, and the growth she had begun to feel inside. She decided to visit the rodeo grounds one last time before the weekend ended. She wanted to see the giant cowboy, not to ask anything from him, but to simply show that she had listened and learned. She wanted to see the horses again, the way the cowboy cared for them, and the way people could be kind and helpful without needing anything in return. The rodeo grounds were busier than ever. Families had arrived with picnic baskets and blankets, children were running and laughing, and horses neighed softly as they moved around the stables. The little girl's eyes sparkled as she took it all in. This world, which had once seemed so big and confusing, now felt a little more understandable. She noticed small acts of kindness all around, someone helping another person with a heavy bag, a child sharing a snack, a horse being brushed carefully. She realized that kindness was everywhere if you just paid attention. Then she saw him. The giant cowboy, taller and stronger than anyone else around, was adjusting a saddle on his horse. He looked calm and steady, yet full of care for everything he touched. The little girl felt her heart beat faster. She wanted to run to him, but she remembered the lessons she had learned about respect, patience, and earning friendship through kindness. So she walked slowly, her small steps careful and thoughtful.
"Good morning, sir," she said politely when she reached him. The cowboy looked down, and his warm smile appeared immediately. "Good morning, little one. It's nice to see you again."
"Did you come to see the horses?" "Yes," she said softly. "And I wanted to tell you something. I've been thinking a lot since yesterday, and I think I understand more about what you said." He nodded, encouraging her to continue.
I'm listening, he said kindly. I learned that coins can't buy people, she began, and that friendship isn't about having someone.
It's about caring, helping, and being kind. I even helped a boy today just because he seemed sad, and it made me really happy.
I think that's what you meant when you said kindness is important.
The cowboy knelt down as he had done before so that he was closer to her small size. Exactly, he said gently. You've really understood the lesson, and you've already begun to practice it. That's what makes you grow. Small acts of kindness, patience, and care every day. The little girl smiled shyly. I still feel a little sad sometimes, she admitted. I wanted to be your friend, and I thought maybe coins could help. But I know now that I don't need coins to make friends. I just need to care and try to understand others. The cowboy's eyes softened. It's okay to feel sad sometimes. Understanding something new, especially something important, can make us feel that way. But sadness doesn't last forever. It helps us learn and become better people. And you're learning very quickly. The little girl looked down at her piggy bank. She had carried it with her every day, and though it was full of coins, she didn't feel the same need to use them anymore. Now it felt like a symbol of her journey, the journey of learning about kindness, friendship, and what truly matters in life. She held it close, feeling the soft jingle of the coins inside. And I keep it with me? She asked quietly. Even though it can't buy people, I still like it. It reminds me of what I've learned. Of course, the cowboy said warmly. It's a good reminder. Just remember, the coins are only one part of the story. The most important part is what's in your heart. The little girl nodded, feeling a small pride in herself. She had begun to understand that life was about more than getting what you wanted. It was about giving care, showing kindness, and making a difference in the lives of others. She felt a sense of calm and happiness she had never felt before. For the next few hours, she helped the cowboy with small tasks, feeding the horses, brushing their coats, and even holding the reins carefully while he adjusted the saddles. She noticed how patient and gentle he was, and she tried her best to follow his example. Each small task made her feel proud, and she realized that helping others could bring joy just as much as receiving anything. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the little girl sat quietly on a bench near the stables. She watched the cowboy as he led his horse toward the corral, noticing the care and patience he showed with every step. She thought about all that had happened over the past few days, the initial curiosity, the question about buying him, the lesson about buying kindness, and her small acts of helping others. Each moment had taught her something valuable. She remembered the first time she had asked him if she could buy him. Back then she had been so innocent and naive, thinking that coins could give her what her heart desired. Now, she understood that the most precious things in life, friendship, trust, love, and care, could never be bought. They were grown in the heart through action, patience, and understanding. Her mother, who had been watching from a distance, came to sit beside her. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. "You've learned something very important, and you've already begun to practice it. That's the best lesson anyone could hope to learn." The little girl smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. She felt proud not because she had coins or toys, but because she had learned something that could never be bought. She had learned about kindness, about caring for others, and about the value of friendship. Later that evening, as the little girl walked home, she looked up at the sky, now filled with the soft light of stars beginning to appear. She held her piggy bank lightly in her hand, feeling the coins inside, but knowing they were not the most important thing in her life. The lessons she had learned were far more valuable. She had experienced sadness, curiosity, hope, and pride, all in one few days, and she felt stronger and wiser for it. That night, before falling asleep, she whispered to herself a small promise. "I will be kind. I will care. I will help others. And one day, I will have friends who love me for who I am, not for what I have." She hugged her piggy bank gently and closed her eyes, feeling a sense of peace and understanding she had never felt before. The little girl knew that life would bring more questions, more moments of curiosity, and perhaps more sadness. But she also knew that she now had the tools to face them: kindness, care, and the understanding that the most important treasures in life could not be bought, only shared. And somewhere in her heart she carried the memory of the giant cowboy, his warm voice, his gentle smile, and the lesson he had taught her. That memory would stay with her forever, guiding her as she grew, helping her to become the kind, thoughtful, and caring person she was beginning to be. The days went by, and she continued to visit the rodeo grounds from time to time. She practiced kindness every day, helping friends, sharing toys, listening to others, and even helping neighbors with small chores. She learned that the more she gave, the happier she felt. Coins could buy small things, but her heart had discovered something far greater: the joy of giving, the strength of care, and the beauty of true friendship. One afternoon, while watching the cowboy help another child at the rodeo, she realized that she no longer felt the sadness she had felt at first. The longing to buy someone had disappeared completely. Instead, she felt a deep sense of understanding, respect, and admiration. She knew that friendships and kindness were treasures that could grow forever, and that lesson would stay with her for the rest of her life. And so, the little girl's journey, which had begun with a simple question, "Can I buy you?" ended with a profound understanding. She had learned about life, kindness, and the value of the heart. She had cried, she had wondered, she had hoped, and now she understood. And in that understanding, she found a happiness that no coin could ever buy.